hope for all of us, to say the least. And then we have another dear friend, Dr. Michael Beckwith, who's founder of Agape International Spiritual Center. Good to see you, brother. And Michael is just, he's nothing but love. He's just such a source of love. And Agape has outreach programs. He and I are aligned because of all the work we do for the homeless and for incarcerated individuals. And I know he cares about the planet, but his center has got people of every religion, every color, every background there in LA, and just such a force for good. Great to have you, Michael.
Thank you, Tony.
Good to see you. And then Reverend Jesse Jackson will be joining us later. He had an issue. He couldn't join us at the time, so we'll introduce him afterwards. He sends his love to all of you. Wishes he could participate in the group part of it, but he'll be here to share his insights as well. And we're also, if we have time, we have an officer that has joined us who's a 10-year veteran of the Santa Monica station. He's a friend of Laura King, and I want you to understand a little bit about his history because we get the chance to see his perspective. And I think when you look at him, we all have giant bullshit meters. You can feel what's real and what's bullshit. And I think you'll see this man's got a great heart and he has a unique history. Many people think he's active as a racist because he's a police officer, and he actually is married to an African-American woman and has, interracial children. So hopefully we'll be able to catch a little bit from him as well. So it's a full docket. I want to thank you all one more time for the patience to be here together. And I want to, since Terrence can't join us, I want to come back here. We were talking offline initially with Benjamin. Is it okay then if I call on you to share what the family's experience has been and the message they want shared? Would that be appropriate?
Certainly, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for your prayers for the family of George Floyd. As I was telling Bishop Jakes earlier, they're getting ready to have a wake. And those are always difficult things when it sets in that this really is real, that you're going to put them in the ground. And you want to believe, as I'm saying, Sabrina Fulton knows all too well, that it's just a nightmare. You're going to wake up and it's not real. But the tragedy of the killing of George Floyd is real in a different kind of way, because we have all saw the documentary of his death, literally narrated by him. And I mean, he, for not 1 minute, not 2 minutes, not 3 minutes, not 4 minutes, not 5 minutes, not 6 minutes, not 7 minutes, not 8 minutes, but almost 9 minutes, he is starving for air. He is begging. He's saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the police officer has his knee on his neck. He is so desperate, he literally at one point calls out for his mama. And it's just astonishing when you think about that, because in our most desperate times, I think most people still think, who is my first protector in life? It is your mother. And I remember Reverend Al asked me about his mother, and when I told him his mother was deceased, it shocked him, because he was saying, but he's calling out for her. And I think that was absolutely utter desperation, knowing that you are losing consciousness. You can tell that it's ending for you. And literally at the end of the video, as painful as it is to watch and hear, you hear him say at the end, I'm gone now. And it's just unbelievable, because Martin, they don't offer him any humanity. I mean, these are the police officers who will be trained to deal with de-escalation. They're supposed to be trained to deal with conflict resolution. They're supposed to be trained as first responders to save a life. But yet, they're the ones escalating it, and it's the lay people who are on the street that we hear on the video saying, you're killing him, take your knee off his neck. And so it's hard to even think about it. And I always count the minutes out, because I want it to be dramatic for people to understand how they tortured him. I mean, this was torture. And that's why I think you have the riots erupting in cities all across America, because we have saw far too often that when white police kill Black people, normally nothing happens to them. And we sweep it under the rug, and we create a hashtag, and the families are left brokenhearted with no answers. This is different, we believe, Tony, because we saw that video. And I'll say these two remaining things in my opening remarks. The fact that we had an autopsy performed on the family's behalf that contradicted the autopsy that was performed by the county's medical examiner. And Dr. Michael Biden, a noted forensic pathologist, and a very sharp sister named Dr. Alicia Wilson, who's the head of pathology and forensic sciences for the University of Michigan, concluded these two things. Number one, the manner and cause of death medically was mechanical asphyxiation. And they said that was because of the knee on his neck. And we see how he was, just crushing his knee into his neck as he's turning his head, trying to get breath, obstructed his ability to take in air. And then the two knees on the back by another officer that was compressing down on his lungs that would not allow his lungs to contract so they can take in and dispense air, and it interrupted the blood flow to his brain. And so those were the medical causes of death. The legal cause was homicide. And that is important, as we know, in the criminal prosecution, because be able to establish that his death was not natural, because that's the only way you can charge somebody with homicide. And in this instance, it contradicts what the county medical examiner said, because they are trying to suggest, very similar to Eric Gardner, Tony, who said, I can breathe first in Staten Island, New York, that there was some underlying unknown health condition that caused his death. And they tried to say that he had congenital heart failure, which is asinine, because George Floyd was walking just fine, he was talking just fine, he was breathing just fine, until these police officers put him face down with handcuffs and literally suffocated him by the force on his knee and the knees to the back. And so what really needed to happen was they needed to give him a breath. He needed a breath, and he would have lived. And so I'm asking everybody, and along with George's family, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath for peace. Let's take a breath for justice. And let's take a breath to try to heal our country. But most important,